We're going to turn to Molly from Ontario, calling in from Ontario, watching us on YouTube. Molly, welcome to the program. Good to hear from you again.
I was just wondering, do you have recommendations for following along the Latin Mass? We have like a occasional Latin Mass where I live, but I'm horrible at following along. So can you give some tips, please?
I always tell people that are new to the Latin Mass and maybe are intimidated by it, that when we go to a traditional Latin Mass, we should, first of all, not try to follow along for the first few times. What happens is we come in and we have kind of preconceived notions about what is supposedly required, how we're supposed to be following every word in order to be participating, in order to be fulfilling our obligation. But when it comes to the traditional Latin Mass and really the history of the Mass, this was never kind of the emphasis of the church. Yes, we have to be actually participating, but that doesn't mean that we have to be necessarily following every single word. So I tell people, with the first 5 times you go to the traditional Latin Mass, don't try to pick up a missal, don't try to translate what's going on. If you don't know Latin, which is 99% of people, go and watch and listen. And if you're at a high Mass, smell. You've got the incense, you've got the chant in your ears, you have the ceremony for your eyes, the vestments, the movements. And all of those things move our souls, move our hearts. In fact, we could say, as St. Thomas Aquinas says, that there's nothing that's in our intellect that wasn't first in our senses. And so it's really beautiful how Christ established that Mass, how the worship of God is really made for human beings, being very sensory people. Our vision, our hearing, our smell, our touch, all of those things are what move our heart and our mind. And that's the definition of prayer, is to lift the heart and the mind to God. You don't have to be translating accurately to be able to do that. Now, having said that, it is a very venerable and recommended way to participate in the Mass, to be following along with the texts of what the priest is saying on the altar in a language that you can understand. And that's why there are missals that have Latin and English, or Latin and other languages, depending on what somebody speaks. And that would be something definitely to work for. But when you are kind of new and you're just going there, I would let your senses lift your mind and your heart to God. And then you certainly will be actually participating at that Mass if you unite with what's going on in your soul, with what's going on, that sacrifice of the altar. And I think that's a good way to approach the Mass. Especially if you go to a high Mass, you're going to find that sometimes the priest is saying something, but then the choir is singing something different. And then the servers are doing one thing, but the people in the pews are doing another thing. And sometimes this bothers people because they say, well, everybody's doing something different. But I would say this: if we went to a symphony orchestra and all of the clarinets and trumpets and xylophone were playing the exact same note and they were doing the same thing, we would find it kind of boring. But the woodwinds do their part, the brass does a different part, the percussion does its part, but it all comes together in a beautiful symphony. And so that is one way to look at a high Mass, which I believe is, as somebody said, the most beautiful thing this side of heaven. And it really does come together in a symphony. So be patient. Drop your preconceived notions about what you think you're supposed to be doing to participate at Mass, and let the Mass move you.
You're right, Father. The only thing you should be doing at Mass is levitating. Okay, if you're not levitating, you haven't obtained anything yet. You gotta put on some New Year's resolutions. Also, I have to issue a formal apology to our friends in Canada. I always mispronounce Ontario. I keep saying Ontario because in California we have an Ontario, and that's how they say it over there. I'm sorry. Okay. Ontario.
It's Ontario.
My apologies, Canada.